Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm really glad you're here. My name is Becca, and this channel is all about my love for spinning, knitting, weaving, sewing, all the fiber things. If you're enjoying this fiber adventure, please consider leaving a like and a comment and subscribing to my channel. It means a lot to me. I invite you to grab whatever project you have on the go and join me. Let's make some stuff. As I'm filming this, it's springtime in Kansas, and that means that all the plants are becoming really green. The frogs are chorusing in our pond, and our wilderness has turned into a frog nursery. The birds are all twittering and singing and trying to find new love, and the bunnies are all out and about. It also means that the wildflowers have started popping up and showing off all of their colors, the pinks and purples and whites and yellows. And that's what inspired me to design the pattern of the scarf that I'm wearing. This is the Wildflowers scarf, which is a series of granny square motifs that represent the wildflowers in colors of pink and blue and purple and white, surrounded by greenery and bordered by different shades of brown, representing the dirt at different stages of moisture content. And the scarf is as I said, a granny square type motif, so each of the squares was made individually and then stitched together. And then the whole thing was bordered with white using crab stitch crochet, which is like single crochet except backwards. So instead of going from right to left with the stitches, you are actually stitching left to right. And it sounds more complicated than it is. But I think it makes a really nice edging for the crochet. The yarn is Berroco modern cotton, which is a blend of 60% Pima cotton and 40% rayon, and the rayon gives it a really nice drape. I bought this yarn several years ago at a yarn shop in Manhattan, Kansas called Unwind, and unfortunately that shop is no longer open. The past few years have been really difficult for all small businesses, so if you can, please consider supporting your local yarn shop. The local yarn shop day is April 30th coming up, and that would be a great time to show them your support if you can. I modified the motif from a motif in this book, which is called the Crochet Handbook and Stitch Guide. This was edited by Ruth Patrick. I'll leave a link to where you can buy this if I can find one. But it was modified from a pattern or motif in here called the Briar Rose, and I adjusted it to better represent the wildflowers in this particular pattern. I also made this design in two different color themes, the wildflowers that I'm wearing, and also what I call crop circles, or possibly desert farming. I haven't decided which one, and maybe you can help me with that. This other color theme is a series of green and brown circles surrounded by dark brown edging, and then blue and white around the outside. The pattern itself, the actual stitching pattern, is exactly the same as for the wildflowers. It's just the color pattern that is different. And this one represents a farming technique that's used in western Kansas, where it's very dry, very windy, and they use these really large irrigation sprinkler systems which go round in a circle. So what you end up with the crops themselves, the fields themselves are square, but the inside of the field where everything is growing is really bright green, and the outside corners are dark brown. And if you fly over in an airplane and you see an aerial view, the land looks like this patchwork of circles embedded, green circles embedded in brown squares. So that was the inspiration for this color choice. And why don't you leave a comment and let me know whether you think I should call this crop circles or desert farming. Next, I'd like to share with you my work in progress. This is a sock pattern called Toivoharju by Heidi Alander on Ravelry. The socks are knit in Knit Picks Stroll Tonal fingering in the color matcha, and I'm calling these green tea, or excuse me, I'm calling these tea ceremony socks because of the color. It's this beautiful variegated green, just soft shades of green and yellowish green that just work really well, I think, with this pattern. The pattern is a cuff down pattern, and it has this lace panel that starts on the outside of the leg and then wraps around to the front and then goes down the top of the foot, which is really, really cool. The pattern calls for making these one at a time on double pointed needles, and I really prefer making my socks 2 at a time so that I don't have that one sock finished and then you have to worry about counting rows to make sure that they match up. So I decided to do them 2 at a time, and that was going great until I got to where the lace pattern starts migrating around the sock, and I got about 20 rows into that and realized that I was making 2 left feet instead of a right and a left. So I had to pull them off and rip back those 20 rows and fix that. So now I have one that wraps around one direction and one that wraps around the other direction, so I'll have a right and a left. Figuring out how to pull the sock off without having to take them all off of my magic loop was a bit complicated and took me a while, and took me putting them on a separate set of needles and then realizing that I had the stitches misaligned, so I had to do that again. But I finally got it done, and I'm really glad that I caught it when I did, because pulling back 20 rows and dealing with the headache then was so much better than it would have been if I'd finished the socks and realized that I had to pull one of them completely out and start over. So making those choices to do it 2 at a time made it more complicated, but I think it's going to be good in the end. So as the pattern moves around, I'm having to adjust and relocate the stitches from one side of the work to the other side. So eventually I'll end up with only 5 stitches on one side of the needles and all the rest of them on the other, and I'm going to have to redistribute the stitches after that to make it so that I have half the stitches on each side so I can do the heel turning. But this is my work in progress, and I felt like this was an excellent thing to share with you today in the midst of springtime. And the other day we had such beautiful weather outside. It was just lovely in the early evening, and so I couldn't pass up the opportunity to take my knitting outside on my back deck. And I hope that you enjoy this lovely quiet evening with the birds singing and the beautiful light of early evening. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for spending some of your creative time with me. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!